Hello everyone, this is Muhammad Imran. I hope you're doing well. Sometimes when we write or speak, we get confused whether the verb we are using agree with the subject or not. So this is our today's topic, subject-verb agreement. The topic is very important, especially for those who are writing their thesis or those who are academic writer. This lecture is divided into two parts. Today we will be discussing part first of this lecture. Let's begin. A verb should agree in number with its subject, right? What is the number of the subject? For example, singular subjects take singular verb. If the subject is singular, it will take singular verb. For example, if I say that she is a student, so she is a singular subject, that's why I use a singular verb is. Now, plural subjects take plural verb. If the subject is plural, it will take plural verb. For example, if I say they are teachers. So they is the plural subject. That's why I use plural verb. So these are the basic of subject-verb agreement. We will go in detail a little bit on coming slide. So singular subject and verb, for example, Spike Lee is a talented movie director. You can see that Spike Lee is a singular subject. And that's why it is used here also a singular verb. Now, plural subject and verb. His films are noteworthy. So you see that films is a plural subject. That's why plural verb is used are. His films are noteworthy. On this slide, we will discuss two important notions on subject-verb agreement. First, the number of a subject usually is not determined by a word in a phrase or a clause following the subject. So a subject is not determined what comes after a subject. For example, Philip along with Jane appears in the school play. Here we have subject of this sentence, Philip. But we have also a phrase. In that phrase, another noun is used. This is a noun phrase. And another noun is used, that is Jane. So this phrase will not affect the number of the subject Philip. Philip is a singular subject. So we will use a singular verb. You can see here that Philip along with Jane appears in the school play. You can't say that Philip along with Jane appear in the school play. Our concern is not with Jane. Our concern is with Philip. So a subject is not determined what comes after the subject. Okay, there may be another noun. So this noun will not make this subject plural, right? It will not change the number of this subject. Now the second notion is that a negative construction following the subject does not change the number of the subject. For example, here we have the coach, not the team members, chooses the captain. You can see that the coach, not the team members. Even team member is there, which is a plural. So this team members will not affect the number of the subject, the coach. So our concern is the coach, not the team members. You can see here that the coach chooses the captain, not the team members. You can see that as mentioned here that a negative construction following the subject does not change the number of the subject. You can see that not the team members. So here we talked about two important notions, that a subject is not determined what comes after the subject, or it will not change the number of the subject. Even that as a negative construction following the subject does not change the number of the subject. So next time when you are writing your subject in this way, you have to choose the proper verb for it. Here we will have some practice now. The front counter, in addition to the tables, in need of a good cleaning. So the subject of this sentence is the front counter. Here we have also another noun, which is the part of this noun phrase. So this tables, which is plural, will not affect the number of the subject, the front counter. So then what will be the correct verb here, which will agree with the subject, the front counter? Is or are. So the correct verb form will be is, because the front counter is a singular subject. So we will say the front counter in additions to the tables is in need of a good cleaning. Right? So this noun will not affect the number of the subject. Just keep in mind. The second example. The short stories in this collection mysteries. So what do you think? Right? The short stories, what will be the correct verb form here? Is or are? The subject here we have, that is plural, the short stories. So the correct verb form will be are, because are agrees with the subject, the short stories. The third example. The star of the play as well as the chorus members dash rehearsing. So what do you think? The star of the play is a singular subject. Here we have also chorus members, but chorus members will not affect the number of the subject. So the correct verb form will be was or were. So if it is a singular subject, the star of the play, then we will use also singular verb. That will be was. So the star of the play as well as the chorus members was rehearsing. Our concern is not with the chorus member. Our concern is with the star of the play. Next example, 3 letter by Thomas Edison, donated to the museum. So what do you think? 3 letters. There are also Thomas Edison. But our concern is not with Thomas Edison. We're talking about 3 letter. So 3 letter is a plural subject. That's why we will use here were. So we will say 3 letters by Thomas Edison were donated to the museum. Next example. The daffodils, not the dogwood tree. Now you can see here we have also dogwood tree, which is a singular. So you may think that we will use is here, not at all. Because our subject is the daffodils, which is a plural subject. You are not going to use here is, okay? With the dogwood, you will use here are. So the daffodils, not the dogwood tree, are in full bloom now, right? So sometime you may be given first a plural and then singular. So you have to choose a verb according to the plural. Sometimes here you may have a singular and here you may have a plural. You don't have to look at here. You have to look at here. Fine. The next example, a survey of the voters dash their opinion on the issue. So what do you think? The survey of the voter, are you talking about a survey or are you talking about the voters? You may think that here we will use indicate, right? But indicate would be a wrong option. You will say a survey of the voter indicates their opinion on the issue. So we are talking about a survey, not about the voters. Yes or no? We will say a survey of the voter indicates their opinion on the issue. Here we have some more examples. These maps, not the globe, the needed detail. So what is the correct verb form which agree with the subject? So the subject we have, that is these maps. The subject is not the globe. So that's why we will use here contain. These maps, not the globe, contain the needed detail. Second, the city of Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. So our concern is not Buenos Aires. Our concern is the city. So that's why we use here is the city of Buenos Aires is the capital of Argentina. Third, today almost 9 million citizens in the city and its environs. So what do you think? What will be the subject, correct verb form in this sentence, right? We have the subject that is almost 9 million citizens. That's a plural one. So we will use here the verb live. So today almost 9 million citizens live in the city and its environs. Now the offices of Argentina's president house within. So first you have to identify what is the subject. That is the offices, right? The offices of Argentina's president. We are not talking about president. We're talking about the offices. So the offices of Argentina's president are housed within, right? And the last example here we have the width of the country from east to west only about 884 miles. So the width of the country, right? So that is, we will use here is. The width of the country, we're not talking about east and west. The width of the country from east to west is only about 884 miles. I hope you got it, right? That we may have other words, right, that follow the subject, but the subject is not going to be affected by those words, those nouns. Now here we will be talking about problems in subject-verb agreement. Collective nouns may be either singular or plural depending on their meaning in a sentence. So collective nouns, sometimes they are used as singular and sometimes they are used as plural. For example, example of singular. The jury has reached a verdict. So jury is a collective noun. When we are talking about jury as a whole, not its individual member, then we are taking jury as singular, right? Singular noun. You can see here that the jury has reached a verdict, right? An example of plural, the jury are in agreement. So when we are talking about collective noun and we are talking that each member of the jury we have in mind. For example, in jury there are 5 members and we are talking about each member of the jury. Then we take jury as plural noun. You can see here that the jury has reached a verdict, right? We're talking about jury as a whole, not its individual member. And here we are talking about its individual member, that the jury are in agreement. We are talking about, for example, there are 5 members of a jury. We are referring to each member of the jury. That's why we are taking here jury as plural noun. And here we are taking jury as singular noun. So as a singular, has, as a plural, are, right? If you're taking class as a whole, not each member, then you're going to use was. And if you're taking every member of the class, then you are going to use were. So here, this context, the sentence tells us that here we are taking class as a whole, right? So the class was introduced to its state representative, right? So we are taking here a class as a whole. As a whole, we are going to use was. And every student of the class, then we are going to use were. If you are taking class as a whole, not each member, then you're going to use was. And if you're taking every member of the class, then you are going to use were. So here, this context, the sentence tells us that here we are taking class as a whole, right? So the class was introduced to its state representative, right? So we are taking here a class as a whole. As a whole, we are going to use was.